Hey everybody, it's Lance Dawson, and we are back with another episode of Backstage Lowdown. Joining me this week in studio, of course, my main amigo, Andrew Stewart. And with us, what are you looking at? Oh, this is crazy. This week in the studio with Andrew and I, Alex Kasznel, lead singer for the punk band Board of Directors. I actually guess it's Alex Kasznel and the Board of Directors, and they will be appearing in Strummerfest August 16th, that weekend here in KW. If you're free, you should definitely check it out. It celebrates the giving spirit of Joe Strummer, who, with The Clash, has been a fantastic punk rock guitar player and songwriter. But anyway, this week we've got Alex Kasznel in studio. We're going to talk about the board of directors, the music they're writing, and then what they're hoping to perform at Strummerfest. So I just want you to stay tuned. This is going to be a really good episode. All right, before we get to the episode, let me remind everybody that this episode, as well as all of our other ones, sponsored by Look Digital Marketing. From stunning websites to full service digital marketing, they help your business shine online. See the difference with Look Digital Marketing. You can visit them at lookmarketing.ca today because Andrew and I, we don't look like this by accident. We need some help. All right, here we go. Thanks for joining us today, Alex. This is great.
Thanks for having me. This is cool.
Well, we're big supporters of Strummerfest, and it's cool that you're going to be a big part of that this year.
Yeah, we're stoked to be there. This is our first time in Canada, actually. So we're going to be in Waterloo for Strummerfest. We're going to be in Toronto for a little bit, and then we're going back to Detroit. So we'll be only dipping our toe in the water right now. But as soon as we announce Canadian dates, I had people hitting us up online like, "Why aren't you coming to Saskatchewan?" I'm like, "Who are you?" But
Yeah.
it was
Who are
like,
you
so
and where
well,
is Saskatchewan?
right. Yeah. I'm still working on like state geography. So you coming out other countries. I was like, I have straight up, I have a friend, a coworker who lives in Winnipeg, and I was like, oh, maybe he'll come to the show. I'm like, not even relatively close. It's like hours
Yeah.
away. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't
But
get
yeah.
that so much from our American friends, but certainly our European friends, where they can
Oh
go
yeah.
from country to country in just an hour or so,
Yeah.
and they just don't get spatially how large Canada is.
It's
You
crazy.
know,
Yeah.
yeah. They'll show them that, look, I'm just going to take this. I brought my bike and I'm just going to bike on this little trail. It's called the
Yep.
401 and I got to hit Montreal for dinner. This is going to be great. And you're like, that's a 6 hour drive, dude. Like, yeah, that's not
Yeah.
happening. Anyway, that's awesome. So hometown is Detroit, yes?
No, hometown is actually Cincinnati, Ohio. So not
Oh,
too far from
wow.
Detroit. Yeah, but it's Michigan ends up usually being the way to get to Canada from where we live.
Oh,
Yeah.
fair enough. Fair enough. So what day are you performing? Want to make sure that we promo the band. What day
Yeah,
are you
yeah.
performing?
So we will be there on the Saturday, Strummerfest. I can't remember. Oh, I got the date here.
The
We'll be.
16th.
Is it the 16th? That's the
Yep.
day.
Right.
All right. Yeah,
Yep.
we'll be in there on Saturday the 16th is when we're going to be up there.
Fantastic. Well, I think you're going to really enjoy the festival. They put a lot of effort into it, and from a band's perspective, I think you have a good time.
Yeah, I think
So,
it's gonna be great.
yeah. How long have the board of directors been together? How long is this project?
So it's a little weird because we started it. I started playing, would have been May of 2022. But I was just open micing basically. So like
Right.
I was more or less just writing the songs for what would become the band, but I didn't know if I was going to be able to actually generate members to be a part of it. So I ended up going through doing that for a few months, and then I made our first album, Everything's Important. We put that out, but it was just I played all the instruments myself, and then basically shop that around to bandmates to say like, hey, does anybody want to be a part of like what this band is, rather than having to be like, I like Bad Religion and No Effects and blah blah blah, and then
Right.
just hope to find people who would gel with that. You could just sort of say, well, this is the band. If you want to do this, you're more than welcome to join us now. And then that was how I met our current bass player Heather, and then our first drummer Brian joined at that time, and that would have been couple months later. So officially as a band, it started like March of 2023. February, March was when we started playing together, and then we've been going at it ever since.
Wow. So you made some pretty quick time between being a guy at an open mic night and now playing festivals in other
Yeah,
countries. Like that's
we
pretty impressive.
we hit the ground running. Yeah, I think
Mhm.
that was part of it was like, I wanted to make sure it's funny now because like with being in a band, it's the barrier to entry is like completely gone. You know, you can sit and make an album and you can just put it out and then it can, you know, the first song you ever write, you can release it and it's on every streaming platform. And there's Heather right now,
Hey,
jumping in
Heather.
on the meeting.
Hi.
Um, but yeah, so it's funny. It's really easy to just start putting things out right away, and then you find yourself as a band sort of you're playing your first couple shows and you have like three songs, and then you're kind of trying to fill time. But I waited until we had like a lot of songs, and
Right.
then had some time to weed out the ones that weren't working and get some honest feedback from people who didn't know me at all and had no reason to tell me whether one way or the other. So you kind of at a certain point gauge like these are the ones that are kind of working everywhere, like the ones like the somber ones that are still working in loud environments and the loud ones that are still working in sort of quiet environments. And that sort of middle of that Venn diagram became the first album. And then that first album was the first thing we learned to play at all our sets. So we kind of had like a tight 30 minutes pretty quick. And that allowed us to kind of just, to keep progressing more quickly than we probably would have if I just like day one said, okay, let me try and start a band. I don't have any songs written yet, but we're going to try and work this out.
Right.
So that ended up helping quite a bit.
Wow. Okay, so I want to revisit that. Heather, thanks for joining us. The
Thank you.
gentleman two faces above you is Andrew Stewart, and my name's Lance Dawson. So thanks for joining us. Another board of director member.
Yes.
Alex
Yeah.
jumped on a
Okay.
little early, so then we just kind of moved right into it. He
Went
didn't
with
mention
it.
That's
that you were going to jump in.
Yeah, no, we're thrilled to have you, and we're thrilled to have you at Strummerfest. So that's going to be really exciting. So when you guys started out, then it's interesting. So if you had a tight 30 of your own music, which is always a tough sell for any band because no
Yep.
one's ever heard those songs before,
Right.
did you envelop them in cover tunes like most bands, or did you say no? I'm just going to try to be an opener and do our 30 with somebody. How did you sell that?
Yeah, so when you start out, obviously, like to your point, like nobody really wants to book you because they don't know who you are.
Right.
So we started by booking shows at the Legion Hall in Cincinnati, and
Yeah.
I kind of cobbled together a PA system on Craigslist and would flyer the shows, and I called all the people that I'd met in open mics who had bands and said, "Do you want to come play the show?" And you could pull like 50 people or something to sit down, and we would open the show. We would open that show, and we would just kind of make our own show that way. And then we got to a point where we could invite people from other cities to say like, hey, you're from Columbus, Ohio, or you're from nearby like 2 hour radius kind of areas, and say
Right.
you guys want to come and play the show that we put on. And then they would be stoked to come down and play a new city in kind of a like a DIY environment, and they would have us come out and play their city. And then we got to the point where we got a little more name recognition because we were just sort of trading shows with bands essentially. And then at that point, then we got to where we'd sort of worked our way up, and then people would call us to want to open shows for touring bands and be their local support, and we would just take every one of those that came our way, play every
Sure.
single opening band. And then once we had kind of enough of a Rolodex of bands that we could talk to, we would start booking tours by saying, all right, where do we know people? Like we know people in St. Louis and we know people in Des Moines, Iowa. And then what's okay, we can get a Wednesday in St. Louis. We can get a Friday in Des Moines. What's between those two? Well, it's Lincoln, Nebraska. Do we know anybody in Lincoln, Nebraska? And we would just sort of connect the dots that
Piece
way.
it together.
Exactly. Yeah. And then that was at a certain point, you can start saying, well, we're a touring band now because we started doing that. And it just goes,
Right.
the first tour we did was like seven or eight shows. And then we did another one that was, kind of similar, but spaced out to some new areas. And then the one we're kind of in the middle of right now is something like 26 or 27 shows. So it's like, you kind of just start building it incrementally from there, and then eventually it's weird stuff starts happening. You go to a place you've never been before, and people are like, "Oh, we're stoked. We heard a lot about you guys." I'm like, "You've heard things about us?" Like
Yeah.
it's weird, yeah.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, that's
This
sort
is
of been the trajectory so far.
okay. And so Heather, um, Alex was just saying that initially he had an album put together, so it was a calling card of saying, okay, I'm going to dole this out to various musicians. So you heard the album, and then thought, okay, I could be a part of this. Was that
Yeah, the first interaction I had with Alex was online, and he sent me the album. And I listened to it and got back to him right away and said, "Yeah, send me tracks. I want to learn these songs."
fantastic? So have you been like a punk rock fan, or what's your background in music?
Yeah, I sort of came up through, the mid 90s, was when I was of age to start really getting into music. So,
Right.
um, So yeah, I came up with Green Day, Bad Religion, NoFX. Those bands are all
Yeah,
deep in my core.
nice.
Fantastic.
Now, there's probably going to be a lot of people that are at Strummerfest that are actually hearing you guys for the first time. How would you describe your music?
We started calling it pop punk for grown-ups, because the origin of that was, initially I would get that question all the time when I would was starting out, and I would just always say it was pop music, because
Yeah.
that was how I thought of it. It was just meant to be very very hooky and very accessible in a way. But I think that people just sort of like Heather was saying, like I have a lot of those same influences, and so inevitably that kind of comes through in the music, and so they would kind of start saying, well, you're not pop, you got this punk thing going on, but it's not like
There's a bit of an
whiny.
edge
You know what I
there.
mean? Yeah, like it's a weird thing where they would say like there's something else to it that's not just pop music, and they say, but it's not like pop punk either, because they're sort of thinking. I don't want to be condescending at all, but like I think that a lot of times pop punk is usually written by like dudes in their teens and early 20s, and they talk about the things that dudes in their teens and early 20s would be writing about.
Right.
And I kind of wasn't. I was like knocking on the door of 30 at the time when I started the band, and I had other things going on that I wanted to say. And I think that lyrically that kind of resonated. Also, just my voice is a lot lower than it would be when I was younger. So
Yeah.
I think it just sounded and verbally and orally like a different type of thing. So we just started saying, well, it's pop punk, but it's for grown-ups.
Right.
And then that just sort of became a decent enough descriptor that people kind of go, oh yeah, that makes sense. And so that's more or less what we go for.
That's cool. Now, where
Yeah.
where did the new album Flightless, where did that start?
Gosh. Yeah, Flightless has been so way back at the beginning of the band. I made this demo of 15 songs,
Hmm.
just acoustic guitar and singing. It didn't sound very good at all, but it had pieces of what will be the first three Board of Directors albums, basically. And I could kind of see them sort of naturally falling into certain bins. And the first album we put out was one that was like, it seemed to me to be an album of songs that, like I said, were working live and were accessible enough that people who didn't know us could realistically dip their toe in the water with those 8 songs and feel, like they could get a good sense of what the band was. It was kind of eclectic, but still relatively focused. Flightless was all these songs that demanded a little bit more attention, I think, in a way, and it probably wasn't a good a way to open the whole thing. I kind of wanted to wait until we had a decent number of people already listening, and then put this one out for a handful of people who would be willing to hear something that was a little bit more substantial. Not to say that the first record was like superficial or anything. Just it was. I think there's some more depth here, with Flightless, and it took us a while to get to a point where we could play like this, and also to where I think we had an audience that was willing to be receptive to something like this. And so I think once all that happened, it came time to finally actually put these songs out. They've been ready for a little while, but it was just we had that luxury of time because they'd been written for a good bit, and so it just struck me that this was the point in our career where we wanted to do that.
Wow, that seems like a pretty developed philosophy for a young band, just even knowing that, okay, this song's got more to it maybe or different layers to it, but we need to have an audience that will give us more than 15 seconds to really appreciate the song, so it can't be on the opener, right?
Yeah,
Like
that
that's a
that was.
pretty mature thought process. You're not going to do that in your 20s. You're like, yeah, right?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, for sure. I mean, we were all in bands, before this one. I think that probably wouldn't have had the wherewithal to make that kind of a decision at the time, but it probably
Yeah.
that's why it's pop punk for grown-ups, I guess.
Yeah. Heather, how long did it take the band to gel? Like, given Alex's approach of not a shotgun approach, but I know it firsthand too from putting people together. Sometimes the most talented people can't be in the band because it just doesn't gel, doesn't work. It's gonna implode a group. Like, it's got to be team chemistry and all that. How long did that take for the board of directors to get together?
Um, well, the first iteration of our trio, we had a different drummer, and I think you're right, that just didn't ever really gel. Uh, I think personality wise, I think it was pretty clear early on that Alex and I were compatible. And it took us a little while to find the right drummer, but we kind of um, hit the ground running at that point, just a few months in.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's so fortunate too, right? That doesn't always happen. So that's cool. Yeah, so and swapping drummers out gives you a totally different feel. So you had a different drummer for the first album and then the second album was different. Is that how that worked?
Yeah, we had so we after I made the first album and I sort of sent it out to people, we had a drummer who jumped on board initially. And I think he played very well and we got along reasonably well with him, but I think he ultimately just wasn't really trying to do the amount of shows that we were doing and tour to the amount that we were wanting to, which is completely understandable. So at that point, we had some people fill in for a little while till we found the right person, and then we have been with our current drummer for a little over a year now, I guess. It's been a decent amount of time, but he was down for the amount of shows we were trying to do and to be a part of it at the level we were doing it, which is I think the tricky thing. It's like
Right.
there's so many different elements to what makes a good bandmate. That's not just can you play the songs. It's like are you going to be is the some of it's just even like logistics. Do you have a schedule that's going to allow you to do this? Or, a lot of people our age have, careers and kids and stuff like that that just make it I'm going to be able to do some local shows and that's about it. It's,
That's typical for every Canadian band. Like
right. Yeah.
95% of bands up here, you have to hold down a full-time job.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean we all have jobs that we do outside of music, obviously. So it's definitely difficult to sort of thread that needle of like somebody you can get along with and people that you can that are into the same kind of music and want to do the same things. And yeah, definitely a challenge to do that. That was part of the reason that I did kind of do things in the way that I did was just to say like initially I thought the board of directors was just going to be like a rotating cast of characters because I didn't think anyone was going to want to do that. So I was like,
Sure.
I'll just make these songs. And that's kind of why the name is Alex Kasznel and the Somethings. It was like, I figured I was probably going to be doing this myself for quite a while and then didn't think that anyone else was going to want to join the band. Thankfully that turned out to be false, but yeah, that's definitely something that's always part of the process for finding people to work with.
Fantastic. Have you noticed that there's a lot more people now getting into your music? It's becoming more recognizable. And are you still booking your own shows or have you got to a point where you're using an agency? Where are you guys at with that?
We're still doing all our own booking, which is always we get a little bit better at it every time. Heather's really good at it. She's really good at with networking and getting in touch with the right people, and I do my part of it as well. As far as like the reach of the band, yeah, it's like everyone has their metrics for like your followers and your streaming and stuff like that. But I think the thing that
Yeah.
always resonates with me the most is just like when you come to new cities and there's people who know your songs already, like that's always a big deal.
Right.
And so like and it's not hordes of people at this point in our career, obviously, but it's enough that like I remember the first time we played Indianapolis, there were some people in the audience that had knew the words to our songs, and I was thinking like, how did you guys know these songs already? We've never been here before. And they mentioned to us essentially that they had seen us at a festival in St. Louis and had driven from St. Louis to Indianapolis to see us play because they wanted to see the show. I was like, that's a really long drive, guys. Like, and we've got family that wouldn't go like down the street, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's crazy when you see stuff like, okay, this is definitely, I mean, like I said, I've been in plenty of bands where nobody cared. And so you can tell like there's differences in the way that people are receiving this music that is meaningful, and it's been sort of a gradual like increase in that reach as we've done more things. So that's been
Right.
really exciting to see.
Wow. Very cool. Very
Now,
cool.
you'd said earlier on that you're playing here in Waterloo for Strummerfest, but you've also got some gigs booked in Toronto. What clubs are you playing at there?
We're going to be playing at the Doc Ellis, which is the first time we've been to Toronto for music anyway.
Yeah.
So that's the only other Canadian date we have on this
Okay.
run. But it's actually the same day as Strummerfest. So we're playing Strummerfest in the afternoon, and then we're playing the Doc Ellis at night, and then we're going to Detroit the next day.
Wow. That's a lot of driving.
Yeah.
It's a tight weekend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good stuff.
It'll
Good
be
stuff.
something.
So, Heather, were you involved in a lot of other bands prior to Board of Directors?
Not a lot. I was in a couple bands in high school and then not really during the time that I was in college and having kids and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
there was like about a 15-year gap where I really wasn't playing music with anybody else
Right.
before I sort of picked it up again. So
Nice. And so you said you have
yeah,
kids.
I do.
Oh, cool. And you're doing that, and you do have a full-time job. You are, I'm gonna
Yeah.
guess, a teacher. Are you a teacher?
Close. I work at a university, but
Oh,
I'm
okay.
I'm on staff in a costume shop.
Oh, okay. Fantastic. I was just
Yeah.
looking at the background that I was looking at, saying,
Yeah.
what does she do? Well, that's great. It's always a challenge to squeeze sort of your passion in with what pays the bills too, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Sure.
So, what is your role with the board of directors? I'm assuming so. Alex sings and he's playing guitar. What are you doing?
I play bass and do some vocals, and
Fantastic.
then yeah, also most of the artwork, illustration comes from me as well. So
Oh, wow. Very
it's a
cool.
it's a good round outlet for me.
Yeah, right on. Right on. Andrew, you're going to Strummerfest this year, right?
I will. I've been
You guys
going
make
for
it
years.
down.
Actually, so
Yeah.
for the two of you, I've actually been doing photography for Strummerfest since 2018, 2019, somewhere in there. So I'll be sure to come up and say hi and actually
Oh,
meet you
that's
guys
great.
face to face.
Yeah.
But it's a long day and often out in the hot sun. Last year was just a downpour that hit, and you could barely see the band at times. But
Yeah.
that's what it's all about. There was a backup site just in case, just down the road if we had to take it indoors. But it's almost go as soon as you roll in. So they'll
Yeah.
have everything all set up, and they just move through it from one band to the next. I think kind of midday you're gonna get I think they're trying to focus a little bit more into the ska, and as the night progresses, it kind of gets heavier and heavier as it goes. So
That makes
it
sense.
Right on.
it's always lots of fun.
Yeah. So how many gigs were you going to be doing this year? What's the total gig number for the board of directors?
Heather would know this one.
Heather,
We're in the
Andrew will have to shoot you some photos. You seem to be the marketing director, so he's a great photographer. So if he gets some great photos, you'll be the one to get them. Sorry.
great.
So yeah. So how many gigs a year does?
We're I think we're sitting in the mid 60s right now for this calendar year.
That's awesome.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, we just played our 200th show as a band last week. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, we're chugging along.
that's
Yeah. No
cool.
kidding. No kidding. It's hard to find. I'm never sure what metric you're supposed to use, right? Whether it's followers and to Alex's point about family going, it's always nice when you play a gig. Like when you guys come here, isn't it? It's kind of special to play a gig where nobody owes you anything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
for
playing for
sure.
family and friends is like that's great. I love the support, but no one's going to come up and say, "Wow, you guys really sucked. I can't believe that." Whereas, I'm sure you'll bowl them over and it'll just be really rewarding for you. So that's kind of cool too.
Yeah, it's always nice to get that objective feedback because it's hard. Not to say that you don't appreciate when friends and family listen to your stuff, but you do more or less expect them to sort of temper their criticisms a little bit. And I think that a lot of
Right.
times you can't fake an audience enjoying what you're doing because if they're facing the stage while you're playing, there's a reason for that.
Yeah, fair enough.
And so yeah, for sure, that's always valuable to get that.
Now, are you guys doing songwriting together now, or Alex, that still comes mainly out of your camp? Or is Heather involved or the drummer? How's that work?
Usually, what'll happen is I will kind of like we did with the first album, as opposed to me just making the whole thing myself. I'll make a demo of everything myself, and then
Right.
we will sort of sit with those parts and kind of work them together as a group. And whereas with the first record, we have the sort of like the solo version of it, I guess you could say, which is what exists and is out there. And then over time, as people joined the band and we had some lineup changes, the nature of those songs shifted a little bit, like maybe like 5 or 10%, just the way, not structurally really, but just like the way it feels.
Right.
And now, instead of doing that after the fact, we do it before we record. So we have the opportunity to take the demos and then sort of shape them to what they're going to be that last like 5 or 10%, and then record it that way. So I think the record ends up being a more accurate document of what the band sounds like at that time.
Yeah.
So more or less, I'm still writing all the songs, but I think that we've got the sort of the workflow of how that happens with this group of people down a little bit better.
Nice. Nice.
That's cool.
So you guys are getting into town on the Friday
I think we're
before?
gonna be getting in the morning of, so we'll be playing.
Mhm.
We'll be coming up through Michigan, playing another show the night before, and then leaving fairly early the next morning to get through customs, and then to go to the show that afternoon.
Okay. All right. When you get here, for you and Heather, slide over to Regina and DuPont. It's not far from where you're going to be. Well, are you playing at Bingham's? Is that where it is, Andrew?
No, it's Uptown Waterloo, right in
Oh,
the square.
Uptown Waterloo. Great. This is perfect. So Uptown Waterloo, we have like a Long and McQuaid's, which is our big music store in town, and they're
Okay.
like a chain of stores, right? However, right behind Long and McQuaid on Regina and DuPont is Folkway Music. So as a guitar player and a bassist, you will really appreciate it. It's a vintage guitar and bass store.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
See,
little
Heather's,
dangerous.
Heather's got the right idea. See, Alex is like me. Oh, that's great. That's
Right.
the right idea. Uh-oh. So please don't leave town without going to see it. You'll love the guys there. They're all awesome. And the stuff that you get to see and play is super cool.
Very cool.
So
Great.
there's a
Thanks for the tip.
hometown tip for you. I mean, rather than
Yeah.
a restaurant or something.
Yeah, for sure.
Here's a
Some
way
of
to
you'll
spend
appreciate
all
it.
your money.
Yeah.
So
Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
I was
Andrew.
going to say, we're actually just introducing a new segment, Tour Bus Confessionals.
Okay.
And this is your opportunity to tell stories from the road, or like where Lance, he's has a very expensive addiction to tone. And it doesn't have to be with the board of directors. It can be from 10 years ago. And this goes for either of you.
I would have to say the story that I think about the most, just because we keep running into this and like over and over again, is like we are kind of compulsively early. And so we'll show up in a city usually a couple hours before we need to be at the show, looking for things to do in the middle of a weekday at a in the middle of summer or something like that in a city we've never been to. Quite often what we do is get coffee and go to a park. So we were in, I think it was Grand Rapids, Michigan last summer on tour, and we went and got coffee at a little shop and then sat in our park. We had to go play on a podcast later that day. And we were sitting there, and at a certain point we saw a large group of children walking out toward the park, and we realized that we were at the playground of a local daycare and that we had just wandered onto the campus. And I was looking at Heather like, I am so glad you are here, because
That'd be
otherwise
awful creepy.
me and Andrew just came out of a giant white van in the middle of the day in a daycare and are just sitting there waiting for the kids to show up. And like, it couldn't have looked more predatory than it did. And I was like, we have to leave immediately. But the thing is, we keep going and we never learn our lesson. We keep going to parks and there keeps being like a local, like elementary school football practice going on. We're like, guys, this looks really weird. We have to go.
Hopefully,
that
no
would-
one's. You don't have like the name of the band on the van,
No,
do you? Like,
not yet.
No, just that free puppies sign, that sort of thing. That's
Right,
Free puppies
exactly.
and candy.
We got
Yeah.
candy. We do have the Mr. Softy ice cream truck logo that plays the song as we go through. So,
Also
yeah.
creepy. Well, this is the darkest episode we've ever done.
yeah.
So
for sure.
with you guys showing up so early and so often, do you guys have any kind of pre-show rituals that you like to go through?
I don't know. Do you have any pre-show rituals, Heather?
Rituals. No, not really. Just sort of more
Questioning
habits, I
why you're
guess.
playing with
Yeah.
all these
Yeah.
stinky boys. Why am I doing this?
No, we just all sort of have our tasks, I guess, that we settle into before a show, but not I wouldn't say really rituals.
You
think
usually
it's-
set up the
yeah.
merch table, I think.
Yeah.
There you go. I think it's
Really?
fantastic when you hear it. Like I don't know. From my perspective, it's always a sign of professionalism when you're there early to anything, right? I mean, the organizers of an event are going to remember your band not as one that stressed them out, but as one that,
Right.
yeah, those guys were there. They were professionals, set up, ready to go when we said go. So I think that's pretty cool.
We're trying.
Yeah, there you go. So when we might. I'm trying to figure out, Andrew. Who do you think for the lightning round? Do you go with Heather or Alex?
We could
Could
we
go
could
either
go
way.
we could go we could
One and then
alternate.
the other.
Why don't we do that? Why
Yeah,
don't we
that's good.
alternate?
So we have this thing at the end of every episode where it's a speed round. It's a very unscientific way to get to know you.
Okay.
And
Oh,
so
wow.
we'll give you a choice. And that there's no wrong answer. It's just what you feel like. So Heather, shoes or boots? And you would say,
Boots.
there you go. So we'll have 10 of these questions and you don't have to think about them because there's no right answer, wrong answer. But it gets us like, oh, so she's a boots girl. Okay, so we got that.
This
So
feels like a
Andrew,
trap.
oh, it
Not
is.
really.
It is, and we'll be talking about it prior to the concert. So everybody's like, "Hey, have you heard about Heather from Board of Directors? She wears
Got a
boots
really-
a lot.
got a
You know,
weird
you know what
boot
that means.
situation going
I
on.
know exactly. I don't know how does Alex put up with that.
The boot situation. I mean, just it's obscene, really.
It is exactly.
All right.
Anyway,
Well,
this gets silly. Andrew,
why don't
hit 'em
we
up.
start off with you, Heather? Let's go tube amp or solid state.
Solid state.
Alex, writing in the pale moonlight or writing in the hard sun?
Pale moonlight.
Cowbell or egg shaker?
This is me.
That's for you. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
just gonna go back and forth.
And this
I'll go
this
egg
is right
shaker.
from Psychology 101. This tells us a lot about you, Heather.
I'm going egg shaker.
Oh,
Alex, back alley or countryside barn?
I'm going back alley.
does that even mean?
I don't know. It doesn't
Did you
matter.
come up with these?
I get
Doesn't
judged a
matter.
lot for this. It's really
You do. They're ridiculous. Back alley. Okay. Anyway.
Alex and Heather, you two aren't going to be judged. I will be judged. I don't even send these to Lance anymore beforehand. I surprise him as we go.
They're so insane.
Okay, Heather, vintage gear or modern tech?
Ooh, vintage gear.
Not a girl. Good stuff. I was concerned about the valve amp, though. The answer to that one was
Mm.
tube, but okay. Whatever.
Alex, rehearsal room or live jam?
Oh, live jam. Or no, live jam. I don't like. I don't need the noodling. I would go rehearsal room.
Okay. And Heather, lyrics first or melody first?
Lyrics first.
Alex, tour bus snacks, sweet or salty?
Salty.
And Heather, festival crowd or club crowd?
Festival crowd.
And Alex, we got the last one for you. On lead vocals, Jessica Rabbit or Daffy Duck?
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna go Daffy
I'm so
Duck.
sorry.
See, I see Daffy Duck too. He's a bit of a wild man. You don't know what that show is going to be. That's why
Well-
you're paying for the ticket.
And in his day, God rest his soul, George Jones used to go on stage drunk and do a Daffy Duck voice into the microphone. So I think we have at least one case study for Daffy Duck.
There we
We're also-
go.
Fair enough.
We're also a very duck positive band.
Very Duck positive.
There you go. And you can't go wrong referencing George Jones. So
That's true.
there is that.
That has been another episode of Backstage Lowdown. Guys, thanks so much for doing the show.
Yeah,
I really
Thanks
you
for
very
having us.
much.
This
My
is-
apologies for lightning round. It was going so well. Oh no.